Hey guys, Mono here, and today I want to talk about the absolute worst part of Hell Loose, which is the entire artillery gameplay loop. So the whole using the arty until you get camped by a recon squad, and then doing this cat and mouse thing of trying to get yourself uncamped by killing the recon squad and destroying their OP while they are trying to sneak around and kill you in return. I've been trying to think of another multiplayer game that has an equally bad gameplay loop built into it, and I really can't think of anything. Maybe it's fighting games where the AI actually cheats, like in Mortar Combat, or something like escort missions, but that's in single player mode or single player games. But anyway, the entire artillery gameplay in Hell Loose has to be one of the dumbest, most broken and ill-conceived mechanics ever in a video game. So let me explain why I think this is actually the worst part of the game and why I think it needs to be removed as fast as possible. First off, there's the artillery guns themselves. You have 3 guns that can fire constantly for the entire duration of the round, provided your commander has half a brain and doesn't just run out of munitions by spamming strafing runs or something. When you have all 3 guns firing, you just demolish anything in the game. I just finished playing a Samurai Dumont match while recording for this video, and I got 85 artillery kills in less than 20 minutes just firing on a strong point. 85 kills in 20 minutes, guys, and that's from a single gun. That's more kills than most tank squads get in a whole game from just one dude clicking the mouse and hitting F1, F2, and R. It takes no skill except for the skill needed to actually predict or understand where the enemy is on the map, and then boom, you are instantly one of the most impactful players in the entire match. Artillery is by far the most efficient way of killing infantry in the entire game. The fact that you can run all of the guns during an entire round non-stop is completely broken. A strafing run, which on a good day gets you 5 kills and on a really good day maybe gets you 10 kills, is 50 munitions. That is 16 artillery rounds, which is 1 gun firing for just under a minute and a half, so enough to kill 2 full spawn waves on a garrison. A bombing run is 300 munitions, that's 100 artillery rounds, and the only thing that actually makes it more useful than the artillery is the fact that you can destroy garrisons or OPs with it. Otherwise, it would be a complete waste of munitions. So how do you counter this completely unbalanced thing that requires basically no skill to use? Well, by doing something that also does not require basically any skill whatsoever: spawn camping. Spawn camping is one of the most reviled, despicable, and unfriendly things that you can do in any game. It can get you kicked or banned in many multiplayer games, but in Hell Loose, it's built into the game. It's the dumbest thing. You cannot afford not to try to shut down the enemy artillery, and camping it with a recon squad is the only effective way of doing that. All other options pretty much suck. If you drive a recon tank or a light tank up there, the enemy can just spawn with a bazooka and take you out. Other squads can't drop their OPs close enough, and using any commander ability to kill the people using the guns only buys you about like 30 seconds without artillery, so they are completely useless. A recon team dropping an OP close enough to be able to camp effectively but far away enough that it doesn't get immediately taken down is the only long-term solution, and it absolutely sucks. It's very frustrating and incredibly annoying to get camped by recon, just dying over and over again while you try and kill them and find their spawn. And it's also extremely boring and unrewarding for the recon as well. Instead of sniping the enemy team, getting into their backline, taking a cool spot somewhere to get a wide field of view and get as many targets as you can, you're playing this hide and seek game while doing something that you know is fundamentally shitty. There's a couple of ways that you can try and get uncamped if you're getting camped on the artillery, like placing outposts around the artillery to detect where the recon is coming from and try and kill them and get their OP. I personally like doing that with a combination of either driving a truck around to hopefully destroy their OP from proximity, or basically doing the same thing with a recon tank, but then you need a full squad to actually use the snapshot feature and be able to shoot at them and so on. And by the way, somebody told me that the recon teams cannot get spotted by the radar. That is false. I have tested this, and it doesn't even matter if you have line of sight. you can actually spot them with the recon camera feature. So anyway, none of this is particularly fun, neither for you nor the recon team, and with matches being an hour and a half long sometimes, this shit gets boring really fast. Most people just take a break off of using artillery and come back later, hoping that the recon team also got bored and moved somewhere else. It's baffling to think that this has been in the game basically since day one, and it is still here. The only reason I can think of why this hasn't caused more backlash and why it's still in the game is because most players don't use the artillery nor play recon, so they don't engage with this at all. But for those that do, they inevitably have to deal with this, and it's completely boring. So how should they fix this? Well, first of all, I think increasing the cost of artillery rounds wouldn't be a good idea. It would just mean more babysitting of the people on Arty as commander, reminding them not to completely plow through all of your munitions, and lowering the firing rate and maybe also increasing the artillery cost would just make the artillery gameplay, which is already boring, even more boring. I think a decent and relatively quick way of fixing this would be to remove the guns and give the commander an artillery ability where you can just click somewhere on the map and have the artillery land there for a certain amount of time. This could be on a cooldown or not, and could be a fixed amount of resources, or dependent on how long you have it on the map or something, I don't know. But it would result in a bunch of positive changes. For one, it would make the commander actually responsible of the use of munitions, just like he is responsible for the manpower and the fuel, instead of giving that responsibility to a bunch of blueberries that can basically eliminate all of your munitions if you're not careful. Second, it would limit the use of artillery instead of it being spammed during an entire round. And third, it would completely remove this camping gameplay loop from the game. Another solution would be to make the guns buildable by engineers. You could just reuse the gun assets and have them have a specific range, so they would have to be part of the team's overall strategy and positioning, rather than being this static thing with no connection to what's going on in the rest of the match at all, which is what we have right now. However, it makes more sense for this to be the mortar squads that have been mentioned years ago as something that would be coming to the game, since it wouldn't really make sense to have these huge artillery guns with an even smaller range than they do now. It would just, yeah, it would be awkward. Mortar squads could also be way more fun and engaging than just sitting there on a gun pressing mouse 1 for an hour and a half. You would have to be closer to the front lines, forcing you to actually hold the position that your guns are in, and having to potentially deal with counterfire from an opposing mortar team and so on. Another option is just removing artillery altogether, but I think it gives Hellaloose a significant amount of character and atmosphere that I wouldn't like to see go away. It wouldn't feel the same way without artillery. Foy without artillery wouldn't inspire that same Band of Brothers vibe as it does right now, without the fear of being blown apart seconds after hearing those rounds starting to come in. In any case, I think something must be done about this mechanic. It just isn't fun for anyone involved, and especially in maps like Remagen, it defines the way that the map is played. Not for the better either. I've already talked about how Remagen is especially an ill-suited map for a game like Hellaloose, and most of that has to do with the way artillery works. Without such spammable arty, Remagen might not be as bad as it is. I don't think it would save that map from being one of the worst ones in the game currently, but it couldn't hurt to make it a bit more playable. Alright guys, let me know what you think down in the comment section. How do you think artillery should be changed? Thank you for everyone watching this video, and as always, I hope you enjoyed it, and I will catch you in the next one.